Hello, in this video I will go through the creation process of one of my latest terrains, the Abyss. This is a landscape that I originally designed to be used in a painting. In fact, the colors as well as the shapes are very abstract, and the water also looks like a paint. So let's go through the nodes. Now, I started out with a Perlin node. I changed the scale and the octaves as well as the warp frequency and amplitude to get this very simple Perlin without much details. I also clamped it, the height here on the bottom right. Then I added a terrace node. And this is the node that will give you all those abstract shapes. It will create terraces on top of each other, and I wanted a lot of them. So I bumped up the terrace here value. I also changed the uniformity and steepness. If you don't have enough terraces, you won't get these shapes, okay? This is already looking good, but I wanted an even more abstract shape, so I added 3 swirl nodes. The settings are more or less the same for each one of them, and the swirl basically rotate the terrain in certain areas that you can define. In fact, the first one I place it on the top left, second one bottom right, and third one more or less in the middle. And we get this result here. You simply change the degrees and the scale and X and Y for the position, very simple. Then to add some details, okay, to the terrain, because right now it's very flat, I added an erosion node. However, I didn't want to make a realistic terrain. That's why I lowered the values, the strength and the rock softness to hold the shapes, and strength to lower down the erosion, so it won't look very realistic. And more or less the other settings are the same. Then I added an alluvium. The alluvium simply, maybe it's hard to see, but it will smooth out some border, as you can see here, okay. If you add the alluvium, it will smooth out the borders, and this is it for the shapes. Then we have the texturing process. I made 3 different textures. The first one I started out with the soil. The soil is a very good node because it will give you black and white areas to mask out your gradient colors, but it also gives you some details. As you can see, this they looks like scratches, okay, very cool. But because I wanted an even more stronger look, I added another soil node. They are both set to graded, but the power of the second one is only half of the first one, okay. And we have this almost noisy looks here. Then I inverted it because I wanted to have the black areas on the bottom and the white areas on the top, okay, for the gradient, because I noticed that it worked better this way. Then I blurred out the invert node because it was way too strong. And if you don't blur it out, you will get a lot of sharp points on your texture and they won't look good. Then for the texture I simply chose a very colorful one that has green and blue colors. Green because I wanted to remind the colors of grass, okay? And the blue simply because I was thinking that this terrain maybe it's an island or something like this. Now for the second texture I started out with a simple height node. Then I added sat maps, another simple one, because the height node doesn't really work well with complex gradients, because as you can see it's just black and white. It's not like the soil that we have all the noise and scratches and so on. I also use the height node as a mask in the color mixer here to mix the first and second texture. I set the color mixer to multiply 100%, so we get all the colors of both textures. So this is the first texture, okay, first one. This is the second one, and final result. Then for the final texture I started out with a texture node, default settings, okay, I didn't change anything. The texture node, it's a node that I don't usually use because it's good for some types of terrains like this one, but for the other one it just doesn't work. It's a very complex node that gives you black and white areas, of course, but also a lot of details, like these lines that looks like rivers, these spots here, some scratches, and so on. So you have a lot of going on here. And in my opinion, it works better with complex gradients. That's why I choose this one. A rocky gradient with green, light green and white colors, because I wanted to accentuate the fact that this maybe it's an island on maybe on the Pacific Ocean with greenish bluish water and so on. And I mixed everything with another mix color node, set it to min, ratio to 70%, and this is basically the final texture, okay? This is the third texture. This is the combined result of the first and second texture, and this is the final texture. And after that, just some simple color correction to accentuate, well, let's say to make it look better. So I changed the brightness, the contrast, sorry, as well as the hue and the lightness. And I also added noise. Okay, so let's see the difference. This is without the color correction. This is with the color correction. As you can see, the noise at this very pretty looking gradient and the splotches here, especially on the water. I really like this. It looks like it's painted. The contrast is useful for darkness, the water areas, and the lightness parameter or luminosity is the same thing. It's useful to accentuate the borders, because this is very dark, but if you bump up the luminosity a little bit, it will have this very nice light to it. And the noise value is a bit too strong, because this is currently at 2K resolution. The final rendering that I did in Gaea, directly in Gaea here, it was at 4K, and when I exported it in Blender to render it in cycles, I exported it at 8K resolution. The higher the resolution, the less noise you will get. So that's why you should bump up the noise instead of using the exact value that you want, because the terrain at 2K resolution will look very different from one at 8K. Okay, this is the end. Hope you enjoyed this video. If that's the case, leave a like to support the channel, subscribe. If you have any question, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Eyes in the sky, gazing far into the night. I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light